Okay. Hello.
Hello. Wrong screen. Right screen. Did it. Hello. Uh, Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. It's David. David's here.
Hello. Oh my goodness, I'm excited. I'm here already.
I know I'm very excited. And I feel like there needs to be some confusion cleared up because David thinks that he bullied himself into the podcast, but it's not true. I have evidence that there were plans for David to be here from the beginning.
I don't know. I feel like I got mad at you for not inviting me.
Well, that's
And now I'm
fine.
here. I'm not complaining though.
You can be mad at me, but you still if there was a plan. I just Jack is the most approachable person ever. So I was like, what if we just started with Jack?
Not this. Not me not being approachable. This always happens. I can't believe
I
this.
don't know why. You just intimidate me so much, David.
Ah, I hate that for us. Well,
We play games like all the time together, and still I'm like, don't want to message David. That could go really bad.
I can't believe this. I'm just a boy.
Uh,
Thank you for getting over your fear of me, I guess,
yeah, you're
and
welcome.
allowing me on here. I really appreciate it.
I've
I'm excited.
I've sent you 2 life updates this week, so I feel
Yeah.
like we're getting somewhere.
Yes, I'm in the emails now.
Well, not the email. That email went out the other
Oh,
day, and my grandparents. But you wouldn't read it. You told me that, so
no, it's too much for me.
you,
It's too much. I just need a photo.
yeah, just a couple photos. I'll send you a few
Yeah,
photos and go look at this. This is cute. This is
I
cute.
like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Everyone, welcome in. You're all being feral. That's fine. We're gonna talk about roguelikes tonight. Um, I don't know how to
Oh,
get started on this, David, because there's like the whole history of the roguelike. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Uh,
I mean, you're the pro. I've never been on a podcast before. This is my first time. Although I do want to be one of those celebrities who can't find work anymore, so they just do podcasts for the rest of time.
is that your dream?
That's yeah, that's kind of my goal in my life. So this is my big shot.
Okay.
Um,
I like
yeah.
it.
I have to become a celebrity first though, but
You're already on your way.
yeah. But yeah, it's up to you. We could talk about the history or whatever
Yeah.
you'd like.
Okay, well, I think David, would you mind explaining the Berlin interpretation to our listeners of the roguelike?
Yeah. Okay. So this is important. There was like a big event that happened, right? So a bunch of developers got together in Berlin, if you can believe it, and they put together a list. Um, so they said, what is a roguelike? And what are the elements that roguelike games should have? And they decided on some key points. They put it all together. They had a big, huge conference. There was coffee. It was catered. It was just fabulous. This was 2008, I think. I believe that's correct. So we can go through do you want me to just go through them really, really quick and then we can talk about them
Yeah.
in further detail? Okay. So roguelike video game. It should be, or it should have random environment generation. So that means that items are random, monsters are random, randomly placed, I guess, and also the environments they're going into are random. So they change every single time you play. That's, I think, very important for a roguelike. The second one is permadeath, and that means procedural. Thank you, Karen Dita. Right, that's a better word for it. Procedurally generated. Sorry, goodbye. I've already messed it up. There's permadeath, so you're not expected to win the first time. Your character dies, and you have to restart the whole game basically from the start. To me, those two alone, they have a whole bunch of them, but to me, those two alone, if you just have those create kind of like a roguelike, right?
Yeah. No, I
Um,
agree with that. They went pretty ham wild though.
they did go ham wild. It's the rest of them are kind of wild.
I think I think it's important to talk about a little bit of the wild stuff because if I'm not mistaken, Spelunky didn't like came out that year, and Spelunky is the
Yeah.
influence for like a lot of roguelikes that we would consider to be roguelike type.
Yes. And Spelunky had the first two, procedurally generation
Hmm.
and permadeath, but it didn't necessarily have, maybe it had a couple of these, but okay. So the rest of them are, it should be turn-based, which is fine. It should be grid-based, which is okay. So already a lot of roguelikes that we know don't do
Hmm.
those two things. It should be non-modal, meaning the game has one mode. So you start it up, there's like, you just press play at the start and then you're into the game already, which a lot of them do have. I think that one kind of stands out as like, yeah, a lot of roguelikes are like that still.
Hmm.
There's one that just says the game should have complexity. Like there's a lot of different ways to solve a some of these are just video game things. Like they're not even specific to roguelikes. The game should be complex and should have different ways to solve problems. Like that's one of their requirements for a roguelike. It should have resource management. Again, a lot of games. So there should be like healing items and weapons and things like that to pick up and use your resources, like your health and your mana or whatever. The next one says a roguelike should have hack and slash. I don't know. I guess that's fine. A lot of games have that. And the last one is exploration and discovery. So the game, you should be able to explore environments and discover new places. So I don't know how you feel about these.
Well, I really liked your comment actually underneath, and it says, "Are these four needed, or are they just standards for 95% of video games?"
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if
hello?
you could tell from when I was explaining them, my bias that I don't think they're required for roguelikes. Um, like complexity, resource management, hack and slash, exploration. You could find 90 to 95% of video games and they would have all of those. They're so broad.
I
Like the game
yeah.
should have controls. You should be able to control your character. Like, okay, we understand. That's fine.
I think especially though, like nowadays, like perhaps looking at some of the very original roguelikes back in like 1980s, 1990s when they released, like maybe things like uh Hack and what is it, Moria and the original
Mhm.
Rogue. Maybe they had that and like that's important. But
I think that's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah. I think they were looking at those games and those were like core to those games. So
it was
they said
2008. They were living in the past.
it was a different time. The internet had just been invented. So,
I think the internet was nearing 20
oh,
years old at that point.
oh, shoot. Oh, well.
I
The
think
world had just begun.
uh no, well, I think it's really interesting though to look at that,
Yeah.
especially yeah, like in comparison to because we don't have a standard for roguelikes, right? Like they're right in saying like we don't actually know what this genre is. I think
Mhm.
we kind of do now, but back in 2008, I don't think anybody did. But
Yeah,
looking
you're right.
yeah, looking at how the the genre came to be, right? And it's
Mhm.
interesting because the people who made the original sort of rogue based games were all university or high school students, and
Mm.
they did it because computers just had like such limited memory. So I know roguelike is one of your favorite genres. It's definitely my favorite genre, I think, of all time.
Oh,
It's
of all time?
of all time, David. Not to steal your
Oh,
not to steal your thing, but
I
of all
love
time.
that. Oh my god, that's high praise of all
Uh,
time.
every time I think about it, I accidentally lied to people actually, and I said like, you know, the first roguelike that I played, I think I said it in your stream chat, was Enter like Nuclear Throne. That's the first one I really remember playing. But
Right.
I realized I was like, I played Toe Jam and Earl when I was a kid all the time on the Sega Genesis. That was a roguelike by the definition.
Oh.
I was like, this was my favorite game as a kid. It was kind of unhinged. Like, my parents were like, why do you want to play that one? Like, out of everything we got you, you're like, Toe Jam and Earl. Yeah, it was good. It was a fun game, but
Heart wants what it wants. I didn't play that one as a kid.
you know, there's a new one, Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove, and I would really recommend it to anyone.
Ooh.
It's very good. Yeah, they did like a Kickstarter, and it was all the original developers that made it. So if you're ever in the mood,
Is it still a roguelike?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, I'll play it then.
you have to do, I think, the set levels one time, and then after that you can do the random generation. So it's very fun.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I might slurp it up. Yeah, I'm always looking for new roguelikes because, like you said, yeah, it's one of my favorite genres of all time as well. If not my
Yeah,
absolute favorite. If I have to choose one, it probably is because it's so broad
yeah.
and there's so many different things you can do with it.
Well, because
Yeah.
you know, we try and like talk about it like it's its own genre, but there are so many subgenres of this
Mm,
version at this point. I mean, Played Up.
yes.
Hello? Like
Hello.
it's a cooking game.
It's a cooking roguelike game. It has permadeath. It has procedural generation. It's a roguelike.
Oh yeah, 100%. And someone
Yeah.
played Diner Dash as a kid and was like, "What? But what if? What if we made it harder?" Like,
What if we made it harder? We made it random. There was soup, there was starters, there was appetizers. It's
I
a good one. Yeah, you're right. You can basically take the thing that's crazy about it is you can take any other genre and combine it with roguelike and you get a
mhm,
completely different game like platformer, deck builder, cooking game, tactics, whatever you want.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Should we I don't think we said this that they are based on these old games called Rogue,
no,
right? Did we
no,
say that?
we didn't get there.
Oh
We're just too
no.
excited, David. It's fine.
We just want to talk about our favorites.
I think Ashley actually mentioned in the chat, is it called Rogue because of the game Rogue? And it is, but the
Yes.
first roguelike was actually Beneath Apple Manor, which predated it by like 2 years. Um, and it was made actually for the Apple II and Atari 8-bit by a proper, well, not, I don't mean to be disrespectful to the other developers, but it was made by a proper company. Like
Uh,
the roguelikes like Rogue and Hack and Moria, I think that's the name of it. Um, they
Moria. Yeah.
they all came from remarkably actually university students, or in the case of Hack, it was high school students that made the game. That really kind of created the genre.
That is wild.
I think so. I
These old games, both Moria and I mean all of them, they also all had the Axie graphics, right? Is that how you say that?
I have no idea. Your guess
So the
is as good
graphics
as mine.
they're just letters. So this was way back, and you would go into a room, and the enemy would just be an E, and then the E would start walking towards you, and you would be like the letter C for like character, or P for player, or something like that. And that would be the combat. The little E would, and that would be hack and slash gameplay. Apparently,
That was the video game. That
that's
was
it.
it.
Have fun. But
And
it was random and or procedural. Sorry, I'm using the wrong term. Not completely random. It was procedurally generated. So every time you played, they were so simple, but every time you played, you would get different items, and it would be a completely different game, which is really cool.
I think what's amazing is people like really love those games. Like
Mm,
huge cult followings. Because there is a branch, there's a diagram out there that kind of shows like how like Rogue became Hack and Hack became NetHack and NetHack became, and it just goes on and on and on. And
yeah,
it's very neat to look at because it's like, yeah, these games didn't look good, guys. Like they were pixels.
they were letters. They were just typing.
And
Yeah,
now we look at games like this and we're like, that's bad. Get better graphics. Like
yeah. What are those
get,
graphics, Mama? What
get
is
your
that from the
shit
80s?
together.
But they hooked people because of the formula, I guess.
Yeah, I would
And
say so.
they started some things.
Yeah. Well, again, they started like probably one of the most expansive genres. You
Yeah.
know, we talked about like the history of it, but there was really that like early renaissance that started, I guess. Well, I don't know if you want to say that they're in a renaissance now, but perhaps like the
Uh,
beginning was like when Spelunky started, like in 2008. Um, it was talked about by the gentleman who created Binding of Isaac. He actually played Spelunky and was like, I'm gonna make a game now because of Spelunky, which is pretty remarkable by itself because Spelunky I don't hate Spelunky, but
Okay,
it's
that's an
really
interesting
hard.
way to present Spelunky. I don't hate it, but
Okay, well, Spelunky, for those that don't know, is a platforming roguelike. And
mhm.
it's so hard. I've never played a tougher game, I don't think. Anytime I play that game, I just see red immediately. Like I load it up and 5 seconds later I'm like, I gotta turn it off.
It is wildly punishing. But yeah, you're right. It took the procedural generation and it took the permadeath.
Hmm.
It wasn't turn-based and it wasn't grid-based. But I think you're right. Spelunky set off to me, and I think to others, what they call like the roguelike renaissance, where suddenly a bunch of games were coming up because of the success of Spelunky, I guess, and then later
Yeah.
Binding of Isaac. Um, but yeah, you were a little Spelunky boy and going down, and there would just be arrow traps and spike traps, and just everything was awful. And you would die in one hit, or two or three, or something like that. I felt like I was dying in one hit. I played Spelunky. My experience is very similar. I think I played it a few times, and I was like, no. But I played Spelunky 2 a lot more actually.
I played Spelunky with all of my siblings at once, so you can imagine how that went. Like
Oh
it was it was a slaughter. Like
yeah.
I think we made it to the merchant with the ghost once, and we attacked him, and then learned that he would kill you if you did that. So
He goes
it
after
was
you.
it was
Yes.
scary. It was spooky.
And I think if you kill him, then in every level going forward, he is also aggressive towards you and will continue to attack you. So it's bad news.
Yeah, it's not recommended.
Yeah, Spelunky was tough,
And
but it was supposed to be.
yeah, and it was supposed to be, and I think it kind of like set like the precedence for like a lot of people who wanted to jump into the roguelike or the indie development side of things, right? Because
Hmm.
even looking at like Binding of Isaac led into Super Meat Boy eventually, and that gave us
Uh-huh.
Indie Game the movie. And Indie Game the movie kind of like drew everyone's attention. They were like, "Oh, are
Yes.
these actually important to the industry?" The answer is yes, but we didn't know that at the time. We were
Yeah. The roguelike renaissance was around the same time as the indie game renaissance.
Mhm.
Not renaissance, or explosion, maybe, I guess. Not renaissance. That doesn't make sense. But like the upcoming of the indie games, where they could suddenly rival AAA studios or whatever in what they could create.
I think
And maybe,
explosion is a great way to put it. There are so
yeah.
many out there. Like and there's a lot of bad ones out there.
Oh, so many bad ones. So many good ones too, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, usually like it's almost like we kind of have that issue that well, you don't watch a ton of movies, David, I know, but like when you open
Mm,
Netflix and you're just like, "Okay, what do I watch?" Like this is a lot of
yeah.
options.
Yeah. Then the roguelike genre itself is becoming that as well. There's
Mhm.
so many. There's so many quality ones too. And there's a few bad ones. Not as
Absolutely.
many.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
yeah, like Jola said in chat, it absolutely is choice fatigue, right? It's the well, especially now with like gaming libraries being split, even like I find I open up like Steam, Epic Games, and Xbox all at once, and then I start searching through, right? It's like, okay, what can I play today? And now I have to narrow it down from all of these choices, and it's like, this is awful. Like, I don't want
Love
this.
it. It is awful, but I'm not someone who has to finish games, so I don't mind having a million different games to play. I'm just like, "Ugh, I need to get through them." My frustration is that I don't have enough time to put in to all the games that I want to. I just want to play roguelikes forever, but they take so long to like get good at.
They do.
It can be a lot of work because the first 20 hours you're just dying over and over and over.
Yeah, well, you've been playing a lot more roguelikes on your stream recently, and I like really
Yeah.
do admire like how fast you pick them up. Um,
Ooh. I don't know if I support this,
well, you
but
you played Enter the Gungeon for the first time on your stream, didn't you?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, recently I've played Enter the Gungeon for the first time. I played Skull for the first time. Those may have been the only two that I just recently played for the first time. Yeah,
You did
and
amazing.
they blew me away. They're so good.
Yeah, you did super well. Like you exited the dungeon pretty quickly, and it's like, or I guess you
I
entered it.
didn't.
I thought you did. You beat the game.
No, I didn't beat the game.
What?
No, it's a
Uh,
farce. Uh,
I don't know where I
I did.
got that. I was
I
like,
never did.
I was like,
Oh
David
no.
beat it. It's fine. David's conquered the
Just
dungeon. Like,
just assumed. So that's why you were saying that was so good. I'm like, no, I didn't beat it.
well, I don't know. I thought because like I picked up Crypt of the Necrodancer for the first time. I've never played it
Oh,
before, and I'm like struggling so hard. I can't even get out of area one. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like,
that's such a good roguelike as well. So that one, Crypt of the Necrodancer, we could talk about that a bit because
hmm
that's one of the examples of one that I think took the genre of roguelike and it's like, what if we just mash a different game genre that's
yeah.
like completely unrelated that you wouldn't think of, which is like a rhythm game, which was before like DDR or I don't know, Guitar Hero or something, and let's make it a roguelike. Like that's the fun thing about them. You could take any other genre and just mash them together. And so Crypt of the Necrodancer was grid based and it was permadeath and procedural generation. And it was kind of turn based, but the turns were like on the beat.
hmm
So it was turn based, but the turns were happening and you had to like choose what you wanted to do every beat of the song, which is really, really cool. I'm bad at it as well.
It's
Um,
hard because I get stressed. I'm like, I want to keep moving. I want to keep the combo up, and then I walk into an enemy, and I'm like, well, that went well.
yeah. And you have to judge like how many beats away they are, so because they're
Oh,
gonna start hopping towards you.
yeah.
My brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your brain turns to mush after a couple rounds, and you're like, well, that's fun, I guess. I guess I had fun.
It's that's not the feeling you want, Fatlegschickenboy, after a game. I guess that was fun.
I think that's the feeling that I have after most games. I go, well, I
Mm.
guess that was fun. I, I don't know how to judge in the moment whether it was fun or not.
Yeah, you gotta let it set. Gotta let it sink in.
Yeah, just think about it for a while.
Mm.
One thing that you had noted, David, actually, that I thought
Mm.
was David's notes is way better for this than mine. I read David's notes and I was like, oh, I was like, I need to have more people on so that they can send me their notes and I
No,
can
this
just
is just
read
my
them.
brain spilling out onto into Notepad.
Oh no, well it's great. It makes a lot more sense than my brain at least. I was like, whew, that put
Mm.
me to shame. But you noted actually whether there was really like a triple A title for like do triple A
Yeah,
companies make roguelikes?
I think the answer is no, but I don't know why that answer is no. In my research, though, I don't know if this is correct or if anyone knows in chat, but the only roguelike that I could find made like a AAA roguelike was Returnal, which came out for the PlayStation 5 quite early after the PlayStation 5 released.
hmm
And that's like very, very recent. I've never played Returnal, so I can't really speak to it if it's good or not. I hear it's quite good. I've never played it. Should have for the podcast, but that's the only one. So up until then, as far as I know, there hasn't really been AAA roguelikes.
I think
But
that's
why?
yeah. I know why like or I think I know why independent developers make them, right? It's because they're cheap to
Yes.
make. Like you just get probably not in the case of certain ones. Like I wouldn't say necessarily like Cult of the Lamb and Hades were cheap to make. I think that probably took a lot of effort. But
Yeah.
a lot of like other ones that like we've both played, like Enter the Gungeon, and then falling into sort of like that top-down shooter, right? It's like Binding of Isaac, like Nuclear Throne, Wizard of Legend. These are all really repetitive games where you see the same types of mobs, so you only really
Mhm.
have to do them and then just like keep repeating them and throwing them back in. You don't really spend that much money or time building them. And it has like a
Yeah.
lot of profit back for the indie companies. But then you would think that because it has a lot of profit back, wouldn't a AAA company start making them?
Yeah, that's the thing. So you see other genres start to take off, like the battle royale kind of genre
hmm
with when Fortnite got really huge, and then every game was copying it and making battle royales. But that never really happened with roguelikes, which is very interesting, and I don't have an answer. But Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like what you said, it's an easy way for the indie company to make their games replayable and slap in a lot of hours, because a lot of people think a game needs to be a certain length. You know what I mean? And if they're infinitely replayable, then you people are automatically going to think they're getting their money's worth with those kinds of games, and they're easy to develop, or they're easier. Whereas if you're developing a platformer where your character is just running to the right and you run through that level one time,
Hmm.
well, the developers still have to take a lot of time to make that level for you that you're just going to run through once. You know what I mean? But whereas in a roguelike game, they just set up the algorithm so it procedurally generates, and then they don't have to worry about it. It'll just generate different every time, which is quite interesting.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Kieran Dita mentioned actually in the chat that Diablo came from roguelikes, and I think Diablo is
Oh,
considered a roguelike fringe case.
there's an interesting. Um, I like to think of some games that have roguelike elements. I think that's a good term to use when it's like Diablo's like clearly not a roguelike,
Hmm.
but yeah, you're right. It does have a lot of roguelike elements because the dungeons are procedural and they change every time, and the monsters are in different places every time. So that's a good show.
Yeah. Oh, David, you're getting told to drink water.
I'm sorry. So I'm having a slurp.
uh, Jolo though mentioned that AAA's don't make
That's
them
coffee.
because what money can be had from a person playing £20 for a game that's enjoyable and takes 50 hours to complete? How do they fit a multitude of
Oh,
microtransactions into a game like that? I think that's actually a very good point. Um, a lot of companies now are leaning towards, and battle royale is mostly based on microtransactions, right? So is the, what would you call it, the MOBA? That's the
yeah.
battle
League of
arena.
Legends.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't know what the full acronym stands for.
Multiplayer online battle arena,
Yeah, and even
I think.
no, I think you're right. That's it sounds right. So we're gonna go with that
Yeah.
until someone tells us we're wrong. I know there was one actually first person shooter recently, Valorant, that has just absolutely taken off, and that's in that sort of area as well. Um, and it's also microtransaction heavy.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Um, I don't know. I don't want to underestimate these AAA companies' ability to throw in microtransactions just anywhere they can. But yeah, that is a good shout. Uh, Maybe that's the reason. Another reason could be that maybe they feel like the market is cornered by indie developers and they wouldn't be received as well. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ashley does have you covered. She said you can pick your upgrade for $5 instead of it being randomized.
Ugh,
You can pick
not that.
you can pick your next map for a certain amount of dollars.
Yeah, no, actually, now that the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think that claim definitely has. Yeah, because the whole point of a roguelike is it's random or procedural
Hmm.
each time, and it should be fair, like every single time. You shouldn't have an advantage any other time you start up a round more so than others. Whereas with microtransactions, they might give you an edge, but I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. Um Moving into though, I guess like we talked briefly about like the renaissance of roguelikes.
Yeah.
But we really only spoke about Spelunky and a few of the others. Do you happen to have, David, a favorite roguelike excluding Hades and Play-Doh?
Oh my god. A favorite roguelike excluding Hades and Played Up. We didn't talk about Hades yet.
No, no, we
I'd
didn't.
like to talk about that later if you want to.
We will. Absolutely, we will. But
Okay.
I feel like Hades is kind of like the modern roguelike. Like it's almost ushering in something new, but
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Um, I would probably say so. I have a very large soft spot for a game called FTL, which is Faster Than Light.
mhm.
And this came out in 2012. And little YesDavid was in school at the time, and he had his little laptop. And the good thing about these, he was also playing a lot of Binding of Isaac at the time. It was Binding of Isaac and FTL. and I was playing both of those, like, because my laptop couldn't run like the big games that everyone else was playing. You know what I mean? These
Hmm.
games were like super easy to run. And FTL didn't need the internet to play, but it's a little spaceship roguelike. So you start off, you pick your little spaceship, and it also introduced something that's been coming back, or that's being used in recent roguelikes as well, where you don't go from room to room, but it shows like a big map, and it's like branching path, kind of, like Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
So you choose where to go in the galaxy or solar system or whatever, and there's random events and everything, and you have to fight off other ships, and you get upgrades for your ship, and you go along, and it's super hard. Have you played this one?
I have played it. I've never beaten it.
Ah, oh yeah, we've talked about that
It's tough.
before.
Yeah.
I beat it one time,
One time. How many
and I
hours do you have in it?
probably like over 100, and I
Okay.
think I've beat it actually once. It's so difficult, but it's really fun. And the interesting thing, I think a lot of them do this as well to kind of trick you. You can play on normal mode or easy mode. Those are the two modes. So of course, you don't want to play on easy mode. You want to play on normal. You know what I mean? They don't do normal and hard. The normal mode is the hardest difficulty, which
Yes.
is quite interesting.
Well, we've seen a couple. I don't know what you would sort of call that roguelike, because we've seen a few others like that. There is one called Crisis Core that's very similar to Faster Than Light. That's in a spaceship as well. Um, and also though, they had Ship of Fools that came out this past year. Is a
Yes.
select a path. I don't know what you want to call it. A select a path roguelike.
Oh
Although
my God, you've coined a new term. Did you just make that up?
I did, because I think of the adventure books, David. Remember the you flip to the pages that you want?
Choose your own adventure. I hated when you flip to a page and it's just like you fell and hit your head on a rock.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would just go
Oh,
back to the last page. It's like, no, we're not. I'm not going back to the beginning.
same.
Can't do that.
Yeah, unfair. They were the hardest roguelike of all.
There
Yeah.
was that, and there was that, and even perhaps Slay the Spire kind of takes from those in a sense too, right? Like picking what room you're going to next.
And you can see it lays out in front of you, so you can see which
Hmm.
path you want to go, so you can plan out beforehand, like which way you want to go. To be like, oh, I want to be on that path because there's a treasure chest up there, but it might be a little bit more difficult. Or I can take the easy path, but you won't get as much loot or whatever. So
Yeah.
that adds another layer to these kinds of games where you can kind of plan ahead.
Yeah, I think roguelikes, well, as we've talked about, they're already like really tough genre. Like this permadeath thing is not a joke, and it's kind of
Oh,
it's it's bothersome. It's bothersome.
you can't describe it as bothersome. We're doing a podcast about it. It's great.
I mean, yes, no, it is great, and it adds that replayability, and it doesn't feel always a fake like a fake and artificial difficulty, uh,
Mm,
where they purposely put a wall in front of you. I think that happens a lot in Souls like games at times. Like, not to diss the genre at all,
yes.
because I think it can be very skill based, but they give you the opportunity to just go grind everything away, and it's like,
Hmm.
wow, then what was the point? Like this isn't a real challenge, but in most roguelikes, like it's always like mechanic based, right? Like you didn't dodge at the right time, sorry. Like you can't grind your way
Restart.
out of this one. Yeah, go again. Like try it again.
Yeah, that's a good point. In Souls-like games, they're really hard, but you can just leave and level up like a maniac, which is going to take forever. But roguelikes, you can't do that. It's always the same playing field, depending on what your build is. But when you start,
Hmm.
it's always the same, and you can't just go and like grind just to be stronger. That's interesting. That should be something they talked about in the Berlin interpretation
No,
instead of exploration.
I'm
Ugh,
I'm
I'm so
convinced
mad at
the
it.
Berlin interpretation is the equivalent of like the Academy Awards. It's like, here's all the things you need for a great film, but also none of this makes sense, and everyone's just like, oh, okay, you want to say
The
that.
movie has to have moving pictures on it. It's
I
like,
don't
okay.
I don't have it written down, but I know when the Berlin interpretation came out, someone who's actually quite well known in the coding circles basically wrote a piece that said like this is outdated. You just
Yes.
made it and it doesn't make sense. Like what are you what are you talking about?
Yeah, I can look that up. That is a thing. Oh shoot, where'd he go? But yeah. He was basically saying this is so he was saying he was doing a disservice to
Yeah.
roguelikes as well, because it was so limited as to what you consider a roguelike, that how are we supposed to innovate and how are we supposed to make games in this genre if you're saying it has to be turn-based and grid-based and hack and slash. You know what I mean? So then, okay, well, there's only a few different kinds of ways you could take that.
Yeah, I agree. And if you, stick to the Berlin interpretation, almost every game we've talked about tonight is just thrown out the window. It's like, you're not part of it.
Yes.
Go away.
No. The only ones that would still be part of it are Rogue and Moria, I guess.
Yeah. The little pixel ones.
Hmm.
David,
Yeah.
you oh, I lost the thought, but I know it was a good one as part of the problem. That's
Oh, it was
frustrating.
great.
It was probably the best one we were going to talk about all night. Um
Oh no. We can come back to it if you remember.
yeah, no, cuz well, hmm. I guess well, we should talk about the modern roguelike though, cuz I think both of our favorite roguelikes probably fall into that category. I don't know exactly when the beginning of the modern roguelike would be.
Did you say what your favorite one was from
Did
before?
I did I no, I didn't because I don't know why I didn't.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it depends on when we're considering like when the modern roguelike begins. If it's after 2017, I think my favorite would be Slay the Spire from sort of that like um I don't know.
Slay the Spire. Yeah,
Yeah.
Slay the Spire was before. I
Yeah.
would Slay the Spire was 2017.
Yeah.
I would consider the modern roguelike starting with Hades
Okay. Okay, then
because yeah.
because yeah, because
Mhm.
no, I I think it's Slay the Spire, but I think that comes from just like a really big love of card games. I played
Mhm.
Magic the Gathering for a really long time and I drafted for a long time, and towards the end of it like I started getting like really into like more finesse rules, like and thinking about like the stack, and that really like has to change like how your brain works, like how every mechanic fires off.
Yes.
Um and understanding like that concept and having that idea kind of helps you like it kind of helps you like slurp into like other I can't believe I just said that casually. Kind of helps you get into
Wow. Slurping. Slurp count number
I think
2.
I think I said I'm pretty sure I was talking to Holly in public today and I said, "Oh no, mama." And I was like, "Fuck." It's like I spend
Mama.
too much time with these people.
Oh, there's no such thing as too much time.
Oh, I was like, this is what's happening now.
It happens to me too. I almost say slurp many times at work. I'll be talking with someone and be like, "Can you slurp me that email?" Like it's just easier because I don't know what the right verb is. So I'm just like, I'll just use slurp for everything.
Yeah, well, it does help, right? 'Cause usually I'd say thing like thingy or do the thing that maybe
Yeah.
can you figure it out? And now I'm just like, can you slurp on over here? And it's like, oh my gosh.
Just slurp over.
Yeah, it's definitely yeah, it's happened in work settings for me as well. And I'm like, well, thankfully my boss isn't here, but it might confuse her a little bit.
It would just be confusing for them.
Yeah, I
But
think so. I think so. Well, we had a long conversation last time I saw her about like pronouns and stuff, and she was like, "I need to
oh.
understand this more." And I was like, "Good for you. I don't know how to explain it to you though. Like, we need to find someone else. I don't know what's happening."
She just wanted to slurp up some understanding.
She did,
That's
yeah.
really cute, actually.
Oh,
That's
it
good.
it is it is great. Yeah, she's very much into like, how do we hire Gen Z? And I'm like, okay, I don't know. I don't
Oh, on
understand them.
TikTok.
On TikTok, yeah.
Of
Okay,
course. I don't know
perfect.
either.
But sorry. Anyways, getting
Oh.
getting back to roguelikes, not
Oh.
not slurping discourse. I don't
I'm
even.
fine with either. Roguelikes and slurping are my two favorite things. if I'm honest.
We were talking though about like Slay the
Mm.
Spire and understanding though the card stack, and when you start to like frame your brain like in the concept of understanding like mechanics and how things fire off in a certain way, it's almost like you can understand like other video games better, if that makes sense.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so I really started to like when I really got into Magic, like I was like, yeah, I'm like I'm gonna get like better at everything, and some things I did get better at, and some things I really didn't. But picking up Slay the Spire, like I think it was only like third or fourth run, and I beat the Spire, and I was like, ooh, I like this. It makes me feel good about myself.
Yes. There's a sense of accomplishment in that game. Well, in all of them, but yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think the replayability though, if anything, just feels a little low on Slay the Spire. I know there's a lot of
Oh,
modifications you can make, but
interesting.
I feel like now like understanding what decks work and what decks don't, I'm like, do I go back to that one? Maybe.
There's an expansion pack for it that I recommend because I've slurped it a little bit.
No one told
Um,
me.
yeah, there's an expansion pack which adds another character. Well, sorry, it's a fan made expansion pack,
Okay.
but it's on Steam, so I'm guess they have cleared it with the creators of Slay the Spire, but it's really good. It's called I forget what it's called.
I'll have to look into that. And
Down something shoot.
apparently Monster Train. I think you've played Monster Train as well, right, David?
I have. Monster Train is really good. I think, yeah. So the thing with these kinds of games, they're both deck builders
Mm-hmm.
and deck building roguelikes. I think Slay the Spire. I don't think it was the first deck building roguelike. I don't think so.
No, I
But
don't
it
think so.
it was like the first that I think got really huge and everyone was playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I believe Monster Train must have been influenced by Slay the Spire because it came out maybe like a year later. Unless I'm wrong on this, but yeah, Monster Train is really good as well. It's the same idea, I guess, but you're not one character. You like your monsters are your little cards, and you have to put them strategically into the train. But it's really good.
That's cute.
Um,
No.
Deck building, I think, like deck building in itself is random. So I think that for
Mm-hmm.
that reason, the two genres go together really, really well, right? Because just the fact of picking up 10 cards from your deck, that's already adding to the randomness that roguelikes want to have anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of perfect. It's kind of a perfect pairing, those two. And there's a whole bunch of roguelike deck builders.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And I think deck building kind of had like its time in the sun as well. Like probably around
Mm,
2017, we saw a lot of like board games coming out too that were like collaborative or like against each other type of deck building.
yeah, maybe Hearthstone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Hearthstone really did change the game. Like it made it
Yeah.
it forced kind of the hand of other companies that just weren't paying attention to that clientele. And
Hmm.
I mean, Magic the Gathering Arena came out not shortly after that. They were like, "Well, we have to make a program that functions now. Like Magic the Gathering
Yeah.
Online is broken. Don't use it. Like it's very bad." Uh,
Magic the Gathering Online, is that the one that's I played one that it's just like a really ancient system, and that was the only way to play Magic online at some time.
it was
So you had to download a client and
it was probably that, or I think there was one called Cockatrice as well that a lot of people
ooh,
use to test decks. Like I've tested like modern decks on it before, but like it's so hard to understand. Like I've messed up countless times because it's like I don't know what I'm doing. Like then they're doing tech support on the other side typing me, and it's like, oh, this is horrible. But Arena really just kind of made it that you just do the drag and click, just like Hearthstone, and I think that that's a really great interface.
yeah, yeah. And I think people started paying attention and being like, "Oh, we can play deck building games as well.
Yeah,
You don't have to be super into the genre to be able to play them." Like Hearthstone made them very accessible.
yeah,
And then maybe like games like Slay the Spire were all like, let's make this a single player. Like, because before, I guess deck building is usually PvP, like two players playing against each other with their
yeah.
decks. But Slay the Spire is like, no, we can make this like a roguelike, and you just play against the computer and see what you can do with permadeath and all that stuff. Again, I don't know if Slay the Spire should have researched if that's the first deck building roguelike. I don't think it is, but it really
I
took
don't think
off.
it is either, but I think a lot of people consider it the best like out there. It
Yeah,
yeah.
agree. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it did influence a lot of other ones that came after it.
Yeah, and I just hope that, yeah, like we see like even more like ones with even more depth, because yeah, like I said, like as a former Magic player, like that's kind of like what I want, right? I want lots of tricky mechanics. I want to be tricked by the game and then get mad about it.
That's in the Berlin interpretation. Complexity. The game has to be complex.
The
It
game
has to be
has it
tricky.
has to trick you, otherwise it's not a roguelike.
Yeah. I found it. The expansion's called Downfall of Slay the Spire, and you can play as the enemies. So you can play as the bosses, and you go downwards instead of up the spire. You go down the spire, and you have to attack the hero at the end, which is really cool. I
Oh,
recommend it.
that sounds very cute. Yeah, I will
Yeah,
check that out for sure.
it's
I,
interesting.
yeah, that would be great. I think the last one that we should probably talk about from, I guess, like that era, because we talked about Binding of Isaac a little bit, and I feel like most people really know what that game is.
Do
Um,
they? Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh,
I don't know. I
I
just
don't know
I
either. I
I
think they do.
I always talk about Binding of Isaac, so I'm like, maybe everybody knows what it is.
Binding of Isaac was pretty close to the classic roguelike, but it wasn't grid based or turn based. But
Yeah,
other than that, I think it came pretty close, as
yeah,
far as I can tell, to the classic rogue, like room by room, upgrades and everything. Yeah,
I
it was really
agree.
good.
And I think
It
we wouldn't have things like Nuclear Throne or Enter the Gungeon without it.
no,
So
yeah,
it's very important. Yeah, for sure.
Enter the Gungeon is pretty much not a copy, but it's heavily influenced by Binding of Isaac. It's just everything's a gun.
David, have you played Rogue Legacy?
Yeah, I have.
If I'm
It's really
not
good.
if I'm not mistaken, Rogue Legacy is what influenced a lot of Faster Than Light, actually.
Oh,
I don't know if there's a big connection that you could explain to us there or not.
I don't know. Is that true?
I'm pretty sure that I read that, along with the developer of Binding of Isaac being inspired by um Spelunky. Faster Than Light developers liked Rogue Legacy. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know FLCB. This is the
Now
first I've heard of it.
now
Well,
I
those games are kind of different because Rogue Legacy is more similar to Spelunky, where it's a platformer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. So maybe it was also Spelunky. Maybe everyone just looked at Spelunky and said, "Hey, you know what?
Maybe everyone was influenced by Spelunky.
We
I think
all
most were.
we really like it. And we're just going to start making all of our things based on that."
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Faster Than Light came out before Rogue Legacy,
Okay,
but
so I found it right here. The formula and success of both Weird Worlds, no idea what that is, and Spelunky would influence other developers in creating new roguelites. Edmund
mm,
Macmillan, the developer of The Binding of Isaac, and Kenny and Teddy Lee, the co-developers of Rogue Legacy, credit Yu's approach with Spelunky as showing how to distill down the nature of a traditional roguelike to apply it to other gaming genres, which they had done for their roguelites. Uh, and then the co-developers of FTL credited both Weird Worlds, Return to Infinite Space, and Spelunky. Okay, no, sorry, I'm
okay.
sorry. It was literally everyone just looked at Spelunky and said, "That's a great, that's a great game."
Yeah, that's what it was. It was literally like, hey, Spelunky took the roguelike and changed it and made it something really cute and really cool. How
Yeah,
can we take other genres?
yeah,
If we talk about Rogue Legacy for a second, the thing
yeah.
that I thought was really cool, other games did this as well, but Rogue Legacy did it in an interesting way because one of the things that I think the old roguelikes don't have, that the newer ones have more and more of, is progression and meta progression, you could call it, or
Hmm.
just like overall progression in the game. I think the classic rogue like games don't have that at all. Like you just start out and you're going fresh. If you're playing the first time and if you're playing the 100th time, it's the exact same thing. But Rogue Legacy did it in a way where, like, when you die, you play as the descendant of the character you just played as, and that's why it's called like Legacy. Like you play as their kid, and then you
Hmm.
can look at a big family tree of all your like dead characters, and it's a history of your runs basically.
It's like that.
And you would
I was just gonna say it's like Fire Emblem with children's soldiers.
Yes, it is like with children's soldiers. It's pretty much that. Yeah,
Sorry.
but they retain some of the things that you had, and you keep the money or whatever, and you build up this little. You get like permanent upgrades as you go to give yourself more health, which is something that a lot of more recent ones do as well. And I think like it's kind of expected now that games have this progression in them. I think people are looking for that more than they used to. But yeah, like Spelunky and Binding of Isaac had progression, but not as much as the recent ones. It was mainly like you unlocked a new character that you can play as, or unlock new items,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I think you're right though in saying that like the meta progression, whether it's in health or something like Ship of Fools had the ability to add more to your ship or different cannons.
Yeah.
People really want that. And I think
Hmm.
that's good, but then we had also talked about sort of that artificial what is it? Difficulty, if you will, right? And talking about the Souls-like games and how
Uh-huh.
you can go and grind that out. In things like Hades, you can go and grind it out, right?
True.
Because
Yeah.
we talked about
Uh-huh.
briefly in the pentathlon that I'll be doing later this month. I was
I can't
trying
wait.
I was trying to I claim, and we're not sure if this is actually going to be how it happens, but I'm going to do a Hades run with no progression, and that's part of it. And
Ugh.
there has been many warnings, mostly from you, of are you sure you want to do that?
I feel awful because I feel like I'm wording it in a way that you think I'm like doubting your ability to do this, and I don't want it to come off that way. I totally know that you could do it, but I fear for your sanity
Oh,
uh,
well,
a little bit.
David, you've been here since the early days. You were here in 2022 when I was streaming Sifu for the first time. And
2022, so long ago.
I ended up on the floor at one point, I'm pretty sure, just like my hands templed in front of my face, like screaming about something. So
Yeah, I do remember this.
you've seen it all. You've seen it all.
The thoughts and prayers. Yes, exactly. I think you can do it. I think that is incredibly hardcore to do these
Hmm.
roguelikes without any meta progression. Because I think, especially with the recent ones, like if you go back to Binding of Isaac, it's probably like if you do it on your first run, it's not that much more difficult. But if we're talking about more recent ones, like for example for Hades, which we haven't talked about yet, but that one, it's definitely not designed for you to beat it on the first try. I
Yeah,
don't think, even though you can, it's definitely possible. I think it wants you to, many of them want you to die and get some of those upgrades to your health and everything like that.
absolutely. And well, I think in a lot of Hades, like they don't want you to. It almost feels like they don't want you to win with the sword. Like there's all these other
Mm.
weapons, and they're like, and here's a sword, but it's kind of crappy. Oh,
Yeah.
why'd you give it
I
to
like
me
the
then?
sword though.
I love the sword too. It's my favorite weapon in the game. I have a great time with it, but well, out of the ones that I've tried, I haven't gotten them all yet. But that's just because
Yeah.
there's a lot to do in that game.
But it's the most basic when there's a lot of more fun things. Should we talk about Hades then?
I think we should because everyone's getting mad that we haven't.
Oh, okay. How do you feel? I have some thoughts.
I no, David. I would love to hear your thoughts first.
I think Hades it's the best roguelike game ever made. It takes so many ideas from past roguelikes, obviously, Spelunky, Binding of Isaac, all along the way, and it's really, I think it's crafted like the perfect roguelike. Um, I think it is. It just does everything perfectly. It's so satisfying. It has the correct amount of progression, and it slurps in a lot of excuse my verb. It slurps in a lot of story elements as well, and really lovable characters, and the voice acting and the music and everything is done really well. I'm just a really big fan of Hades. If you were to try only one roguelike, I think it should be Hades.
I like how the slurp count is just going up consistently.
There's I know, but there's differing information here. Is it 4 or 5 slurps?
So going to Hades though, I think it's really interesting to see like the way that they sort of decided to do progression, and it's very
Hmm.
different having a story-based progression. That's not something that you see in roguelikes at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot
Yeah.
of people would argue that it's a roguelite, but I don't really even think we should have a differentiator in that. Um
Me
that was
neither.
that was what I wanted to talk about earlier. Okay, I got to
Oh
remember that. Hold
no.
on, hold on. I'm going to remember that.
That's a good thing to talk about right at the start.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah, we should have talked about that like way at the start, but it's fine. Playtip
We could
has a story.
restart.
I don't think Playtip has a story Anvilator. That's
False.
okay, but talking about Hades, it's interesting though, like also the options that it gives you, right? Because it takes that sort of idea of getting the new characters, which we see in most roguelikes. You always get a new
Hmm.
character. I don't think there's
Yeah.
many where you don't. And Hades just gives you a weapon instead, and that way ties it into better to a story, right? Rather than
Hmm.
just kind of dingle batting around if you want to. I was trying not to use the word slurp. Should have just committed
Ooh.
slurping around.
I like dingo batting.
um, but I think there is something that holds me back from saying like Hades is my favorite. I don't know if that's just
Hmm.
like I haven't played it enough and I haven't had the satisfaction of killing Hades yet, because I think the real issue I take is with the two at the bull and the boy, the double trouble.
They're tough.
It feels almost too tough.
They're extremely tough. I find they're the most difficult boss in the game.
It goes,
Theseus and the bull. I don't forget the
yeah,
bull's name. Yeah.
Theseus and the bull, and it goes from being like Meg, like the first time I ran Hades, I got halfway through Meg. I feel like I did pretty good the first run. Like we got quite a bit through Meg. I'd also seen the game a lot, so that wasn't like I was kind of cheating, right, with my knowledge. But we get through Meg. You get to the Hydra after, shortly after, which is a complete joke in my opinion. I'm not.
Hydra's the easiest boss in the
I don't
game.
know what's happening with that boss. Like you're
Easier
just
than Meg, for
you,
sure.
you close your eyes, swing your sword around, and you walk
Doesn't
out.
even move.
But then you get to the two of them, and you have to go through all those levels to get them to them. There's no way to practice against that boss and just like slam
Hmm.
your head against it, right? And the way that it gatekeeps like reminds me very much. I think you raided in World of Warcraft, right, David?
A little bit, not a lot, but I did a little bit
It
in
reminds
the
me.
winter one.
It
Ice
reminds
Crown.
me the winter one. The
You
like
know,
the third
Frostlich.
one, the Wrath of the Lich King.
Wrath of the Lich King.
Whew,
Thank you.
that's a long time ago. No, that wasn't to make
Yeah,
fun of you. I was just thinking like, wow, that's a very long time ago.
I forgot the name.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm an old boy.
it, can we just blame anytime we forget something? It's just old. Although I'm
I'm
not allowed
just
to say I'm old, apparently, so we'll move
I'm
on.
just an old boy. Well, you can say you're old if you want to. It depends how you feel. If you feel old,
Thank
you
you.
can be old if you want.
I feel old all the time, so
Oh,
you heard it.
perfect.
You heard it here first. David said I can say I'm old.
Yeah, age is just how you feel. And if you
Okay.
feel old, that's okay.
Maybe I'll feel young in my 30s. I'll be like, I'm super young. I've got my whole life ahead of me.
I think you will. It's great.
But looking at like, yeah, the bull and the boy, by the time you get to them, and you spent usually a lot of your death defiances if you've like messed up on a different room. And sometimes it's just the
Hmm.
little rooms that get you. Like
Yeah,
you get like 5 butterfly balls. Well, I've never gotten 5, but you get a bunch of them and you're like, what am I to do?
they're the
Like
worst.
there's nothing happening. And then you get to them and you just like die. And you're like, okay, time to go spend another hour getting to this boss that I will die to again.
Yeah, a lot of my runs in Hades are like I'll pick different items
Hmm.
based on how I feel they will be against Theseus and the Minotaur. I'll be like, because everything up to there, it's not as difficult. So I'll be like, okay, this specific boon is going to be really good there. So that's like a priority for me that I will target. I think you can do it, FLCB though. You can do it. They're not impossible. They are extremely difficult though, and I think they're harder than the last boss
Absolutely.
for me.
No,
But
I think for almost everyone. I got through like a huge chunk of Hades the first time I saw him, and it was like I
yeah,
spent how long trying to get through those two? Like this, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You could do it. I promise though. You're doing so good. You've gotten through the Bull and the Boy before.
Once.
One time.
One time.
Yeah. I think
One time.
yeah, you can do it. I promise. You get to a point and it's just like, "Oh, here's the Bull and the Boy again." I promise you.
And it's hard though because talking about the way that like you sort of mentioned what is it? You mentioned how you build for the Bull and the Boy.
Yeah.
I feel like most people I watch playing Hades, the only time that people like think about their build is like, can I get through those two? Can we actually do this?
I think it's because if you get through them, for me at least,
Mm-hmm.
you're pretty much set to also take on the final boss. For me,
Do they?
so you kind of have to make sure your build is like ready to go by that point, for sure.
Can you like spoil a little bit for us, David?
Uh oh,
Do the Bull and the Boy have different forms, or is it just always them?
different forms.
Like, so the Hydra, I've seen 3 different Hydras, and I've seen
Oh,
3 different sisters.
no, it's always the Bull and the Boy.
It's always the Bull and the Boy.
Yeah. Later on, there is something called extreme measures that you can turn on if you're doing a little spoilery that will make all the bosses harder. It'll give them extra abilities, but they don't have different forms. It's always the Bull and the Boy. And if you don't have extreme measures on, the fight is always exactly the same. I think the game does recognize, though, that they're more difficult because you can fight the Bull earlier if
Yes.
you find him, and then he'll have reduced health in the Bull Boy fight. That's what we're calling it now.
I was told it was
Um,
20%
it's not a
reduction.
lot. Is that what it is? Yeah,
That's
that sounds right.
that's what Meat said. I don't know if that's
Meets
100%
the
true,
pro.
but I was like, I was expecting like 50%, but that's fine. That's fine.
No, it's not 50. It's something though. And you can also find a character that will give you all your Death Defiance back as well if you're
Yes.
missing some Death Defiance. So there are things that I'm pretty sure they recognize that a really difficult fight is coming up. But
I just yeah,
you could do it.
I
I
feel like
promise.
if you're
Go for the bull
building
first.
I feel like if you're building your whole like strategy around one fight, like there's almost a flaw there. Like I know people are
Mm,
quite feral for Hades, so I'm hesitant to say that, but if it feels like there's a flaw in the game, like if you're only building towards this and it's not the final boss, you know what I mean? Like cuz usually one roguelike that comes to mind is Wizard of Legend. Now
mm.
Wizard of Legend is a little bit different in that I think there's 4 or 5 elements, but you only face 3. And so you have those 3 bosses, and then whoever is the last one is obviously the hardest. And then there's the trials after that. But you're always like building like extremely differently because of all of that, right? Like you have to remember your elementals, and then you're like going around and you're like, oh, well, I'm actually really bad at like the grass thing. So I'm going to like build this way so that I can get through the grass world easier. And it feels like in
Right.
Hades, yeah, it's just like every single time it's like, oh my gosh, I do I feel confident in Bull and Boy? And if I don't, just restart. Like do it all over again.
Yeah. The thing Hades does really well as well is if you have a doomed run, which does happen
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you're like, this is not a run that's going to make it past Bull and Boy. It's just like, or it's going to be incredibly difficult. But you can just kind of what we talked about is you can just farm the purple stuff and go for your permanent upgrades and then be like, okay, at least that's a way that I think a lot of these roguelikes handle the frustration aspect with the progression because if you fail a run then you're like, okay, at least I got some purple stuff, I got a key that I can lock a new weapon, I got, it's called darkness obsidian, thank you. Or I found something that will help me, or I found the nectar that I can give to other gods. Like there's so much so many items that are kind of like meta items that you can use to progress. And I think that's important in recent ones because to me, it eliminates a lot of that frustration. And even Binding of Isaac did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like every run, even if you fail, it wasn't as much, but even if you fail a run, right after it'll say, like, now you can find this item in the basement, like
Yeah.
item unlocked. And I don't think it even tells you how you unlocked it because a lot of them have like really weird unlock requirements. Um, but it'd be like, oh, I died, but like we can find a new item. So I want to play again to like find that item in the basement. Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, I completely agree, and it makes you more excited to play the game.
Yeah, because you're like, what will I get next? In Hades, especially, there's so many different weapons, so many different like. I've never had two runs that are the same in Hades. Like there's so many combinations of items and weapons and boons and everything.
Yeah,
It's cool.
Hades has done a great job at, like, if nothing else, like really keeping people playing, right? Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
much content can we pack into, like, what, a $30 game? Which
Hmm.
I feel like a lot.
Yeah,
I know we talked about price point a little bit earlier based on something that Jolo had commented, but I feel like a lot of independent games and roguelikes are very underpriced. I like that they're
yeah.
cheap because I'm cheap, but at the same time, like, when you sink like 300 hours into a roguelike and you only paid $10 for it,
Hmm.
what is that?
Hades is not a full price game. It's which is actually wild.
Yeah, it should be. And I
Yeah.
think like Hades too, I would just be so like if they didn't price it higher.
They won't.
And I think
It'll be the same probably. It won't be full price, I don't think.
you've
Which is so weird. They could do it full price and I would pay it, but also like I don't know, it's maybe just because we know it's an indie game that it's like it's not expected to have that price tag.
you've talked about it like before on your stream, I think, but that developer, I didn't realize for the longest time that Hades was done by the developer that did Bastion. And
Yes.
if I had known that, I think I would have bought Hades way sooner. Like, cuz I loved Bastion. I thought it was a fantastic game. I don't remember it a lot anymore, but I was like, this is an absolute slapper. And every game they've released, I've only either heard good things about it or I've played them and been like, wow, this is a really good game.
All their games have been absolute bangers, as the kids do. The kids still say, maybe not, maybe only the old people say that. But yeah, so they did it's Super Giant Games. They did Bastion, and then they did Transistor, and then they did Pyre,
Yeah.
and then they did Hades. So they only have 4 games that they've ever made, but they've all been really good. And you can kind of, if you play them in like order, you can kind of see like, oh, they're doing better each time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're getting more and more experience. Even Bastion had, as you were playing along, they had like this narrator narrating what you're saying as you're playing along, which was really cool. But yeah, they've just made it better and better until they got to Hades.
I don't think anyone like would have looked at Bastion and said this company has to improve like a lot, like to keep going. Like Bastion, I think it got Game of the Year or something. Like it got definitely got a ton of accolades that year. And it's like
Yeah,
they just
Bastion was wild.
they
2011 as well. It's quite
yeah.
old.
They showed up though and they said, we're gonna make it better. You just wait.
It was really good. Yeah. That was when indie games were taking off as well. So that was right
Absolutely.
around in those times. But yeah, they've done really good. I know you have your hang-ups about Hades. I bet you can get past that Bull and the Boy though. But
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think it's perfect. And because I think it's perfect, I'm afraid for Hades 2. I'm like, oh no, like it has to be so good.
Yeah. Absolutely. Uh,
Oh, and if it's not like 10 out of 10, people are gonna be like, it's garbage.
I I think in when I play Hades, like I'm just gonna be honest, I don't pay attention to the story at all. I just go, that's great. I click through the buttons and I go. I'm like, I don't care. I'm here for
It's
gameplay.
really good.
I know the story is really good, but David, I like when I'm playing, I legitimately cannot wait for my next run. So I speed through everything.
Oh,
I'm like, let me go. Let me go. I've got to go pick a weapon.
yeah.
I've got to go. I've got to go. And then like we're just back in it. Like I don't I want the ability to just keep running without having to go back to town and talk to people cuz I'm like I don't want to bother with you. Like no offense to anyone in like Hades, but I don't care.
Oh my God, you can play video games however you want to play them. There's no correct way or incorrect way. And I think Hades is maybe a good example of one that, like, if you want to pay attention to the story, it's available for you.
Mhm.
But if you don't, it doesn't force it on you, really. Like, if you just
Yeah.
want to go back to town or to the whatever it's called, Hall of Hades, I don't even remember,
Mhm.
and then just leave immediately, you don't really have to talk to anyone. You could just go straight back out.
Yeah.
There is meta progression that you can get by talking to people and befriending the characters. You can unlock their items and everything. But yeah, you don't have to. So it's kind of, again, it's kind of like you can choose how you want to play it for sure.
Yeah, you can just go.
Yeah.
I know.
I like the break in between. I like going back and be like, oh, that was very stressful. I just want to talk with my friends for a moment, see how everyone is doing,
I know
and then go back out when I'm ready.
Obsidian commented actually talking about the art, and I think that
Mm,
actually relates quite a bit because I spoke about this before when I was talking about indie games and the cozy genre a little bit, and how people
mm,
who played Hades got really introduced to the roguelike for what it was, which I think is really good for the genre because it suddenly brought in like all these people that like played Stardew Valley or played all these other things. They came
yes.
in to Hades, as someone else put it. I think it was Hecky said, "Well, they just wanted sexy people. That's what they wanted."
Oh, they're so sexy. They don't even need to be, but they are.
They just wanted sexy people, and now they're here. But then they also, another really big release recently was Cult of the Lamb. And
Yeah.
that also took like cozy gamers and they were like, "Oh, do we like roguelikes now? Is this one of our genres that we're kind of gathering in?"
Yeah, you're right. We didn't talk about Cult of the Lamb very much, but that one had a very wide appeal as well. That
Mhm.
one really took off with people. Um, and it was good. It wasn't sexy though.
No, no, it was weird. There was a lot of poop involved.
There was a
I
lot of
think
poop.
every review that gave it negative points was like, "I just don't want to talk about poop this much." And it's like, is that why you gave the game like a 7 out of 10? Like, is that why?
I think Cult of the Lamb had a lot of issues, but I think it was
Mhm.
really fun and it was interesting and it tried a lot of fun things to kind of balance a roguelike where you go in and there's permadeath, but then you come back to a city builder.
Yeah.
So again, it's like here's this genre, here's this genre. How can we slurp them together? But yeah, so I guess it was slurped with a cult simulator city builder. I don't know.
Yeah, and it was I think it was interesting to see though like their attempt at sort of doing like the city builder stuff cuz like you said like there were a lot of issues with it. I
Yeah.
really felt like the runs were fun though again like I was always looking forward to running again, but I hated having to go back sometimes and
Yeah.
just like sit there and be like, "Okay, now I have to take care of my cult." And it's like, "Well, get out of here. Like this is too much pressure."
Yeah. I think Cult of the Lamb for me was a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10 kind of situation. Like it was really good, but also I agree. There was lots of moments where I'm like, I don't want to just go back and have to feed you guys
Yeah.
your little meals
Yeah.
again and again and again before I go out on
I
another run.
I killed a lot of my followers. I won't lie. Like I was like you
Yeah.
need to eat. I don't have food for you. Like we're going to the temple. We got a sacrifice to make. Like get out of here. Uh,
Yeah. It wasn't one of my favorites. It was good fun though for its time. But
yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. And I think it did a lot with Twitch integration. I think that was very special. Like it really
yeah.
it showed like how simple it is to engage with your community a little bit more and for like other games to maybe take that step forward.
That's true. It did it really well, even though there was some connectivity issues at first when it
Mhm.
was first launched and everyone was trying to get into it. It
I
was
don't
cute how you could be a little villager in your Twitch streamer's town or whatever.
I don't think they expected that big of a launch. Like, I think if they had, they
Yeah,
would have fixed it a bit more. But they were like, "Whoa, whoa, why does everyone
y-
want to play our game?"
yeah, I agree. Again, because it was a smaller studio. It was published by Devolver, so they had a publisher. But still, yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't like I agree. I don't think they expected that many streamers to be like, I'm playing this on the day it's released.
yeah,
It was good though. It was good exposure for the genre.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, and like we said, like bringing like more people in. Like I think that especially a lot of people came into gaming during the pandemic and they wanted something
Yep.
comfortable and like safe to play, which I think that's totally fine. I think a lot of even like more hardcore gamers turn towards that sort of like comfort games, like
Yeah.
because it was just so stressful for everyone. And now they're like, well, I'm bored of these games, and it's like, well, there's a lot out there. Like you haven't tried it yet. How do you know?
Oh, that's a good hypothesis. So you're doing this episode after your cozy game episode. It's a
Yes.
progression of people wanted cozy games during the pandemic and now they're over it.
Yeah.
They
I
want something frustrating.
I think so. Like cuz a lot of people too like Stardew Valley has a huge cult following, but a lot of
Yeah.
people who are into the cozy gaming sector are like, they have the concept of it's like a top selling game, and it's like it's not. It really, like, it did great for an independent studio, and for a first title it did well, but I think it only sold 5 million copies. Most AAA
Mm.
titles sell that easily if they're on all platforms. Like, they surpass that within seconds, right? Something like Dying Light, which does not have a following at all, hit, I think, 17 million sales. Like,
Ooh,
nobody plays
that's
that game anymore.
surprising.
No one talks about it.
No,
Like,
but it was a AAA game,
yeah.
and there was marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And these titles just don't have the availability, but now these people, yeah, like I said, like all these 5 million people that really wanted that farming game don't know what to do anymore, and they're waiting on Haunted Chocolatier, so why they should be playing Hades
I am
too?
too, though.
Oh, no,
I can't wait.
100%. It looks very cute, 100%, but it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something else. I think we've talked a lot about like sort of this stuff. Um
Hmm.
What about though, like cooperative like roguelikes? I think that's starting to become a thing.
Cooperative roguelikes.
Played up, David?
Oh my god, have you ever heard of it?
I haven't. Do you know anyone who streams it by chance? Like,
Oh, I don't know. Who might do that? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's actually true, FLCB. I didn't think about that. But yeah, is that well, Ship of Fools is co-op too, right?
it is. Yeah, it's two-player.
This is a new thing. I didn't
Yeah.
have this in my notes. I hadn't considered this because the ones we've been talking about have all basically been single player games. But yeah, there is kind of a trend now. I think there's a trend even more so for more co-op games, just like in general.
Yeah,
But you're right. Enter the Gungeon has co-op as well, and so does Binding of Isaac. The remake also has co-op,
it
very
does.
limited co-op.
I I think their Nuclear Throne and Wizard of Legend can also be two-player. So it's existed for sure, but it never has felt like a main part of the game. And I know like Ship of
Right.
Fools, you can tell like playing Ship of Fools, they tweaked it for single player, but it was meant to be set like two people. Like
Mm,
all of the ways that it plays, it's like, okay, this would be much easier if I had a second person here doing this with me. Like this is what it's intended to be. And I know you are a played up expert, David, and you have no problem running solo. It is
right.
my belief though, like when I play played up with like even just a second person, I'm like, this is how it's meant to be. Like the game feels a little bit more complete to me when I play with multiple people.
Yeah, when you play played up solo, you kind of have to kind of use all the mechanics that you can in your favor to make it work. Like you have to really make your kitchen and your restaurant look very, very silly. And it
Hmm.
doesn't look like a real restaurant at all if you want to do it single player. But with multiplayer, yeah, I agree. It does feel like it's kind of made for that. Another game that is made for it, as well as Children of Morta, which came out a few years ago, where you play as like family members, and it's a roguelike, and it's really good. And it's kind of made for co-op, and each person who's playing can pick a different family member and go into the dungeon together. And they have different abilities. It's kind of like Diablo once you get in there.
I don't
But I
think
hadn't thought about it.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one at all.
It's gorgeous. Children of Morta. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I will definitely, I'll check that out for sure. That's, well, I'm always
Yeah.
looking for more roguelikes, so
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, that's a good point. Sorry if I jumped away from your plate up discussion.
no,
If you
no,
wanted
no.
to
I
slurp that more.
I think
Uh,
that's sort of like, like I have the desire to talk a little bit about like how roguelikes are going to be changing too, right? Because my favorite game of 2022 was Sifu. I think the game was infuriating but beautiful. Everything about it. I could just talk about that game forever, so we won't. But it wasn't a roguelike, but it had roguelike progression in it, the meta progression. And I think we're starting to see like a few other games, most notably indie games, are like taking those small like pieces of influence from the roguelike genre.
mhm.
And I think what does the future of rogues like look like to you, David? Like what is, if you could get more perfect than Hades, which I know you think it's your favorite roguelike, it's perfect, it's fine, right? If you could get more perfect than Hades, how would you do it?
The problem now is we know that Hades 2 is coming.
Okay, so Hades 2 is the perfect.
Hades 2 is the future of roguelikes at this point. Like, what is it going to be? What are they going to do to it? What are they going to add?
Hmm.
What do I want in Hades 2, if I'm sitting here thinking Hades is the perfect roguelike, then Hades 2 has to be the future of it. So what are they going to implement into it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have an answer, FLCB, for you. What do you think?
I think I would like to see. I really loved Hades. I do like Hades, right? And we talked about I have the issues with the bull and the boy. I would love to see more variety, I guess, in the runs is how it feels sometimes. The
Hmm.
Maybe I've played Hades just a little too much all at once, but I don't feel like I've played an obscene amount of the game. But it
No.
starts to feel like the first level, especially. It's like this is like I'm brain dead now. You know, it's suffering from what most roguelikes do. The very easy levels become too easy, but there's no way to skip them over or to make them like a little bit more random. And I think if
Right.
perhaps the worlds, like even like worlds 1, 2, and 3, if they could happen in random order and then different difficulty settings for the boss that was like correctly tuned. I don't know how you would tune that. I think that would be a nightmare for the developers. And it would take away like the sort of easiness of creating one of these games.
Hmm.
But if you could see the bull and the boy in the first world and all of a sudden they're like way easier, and then world 3 you're against like the sisters and you're like, what the hell is going on, right? Like this is this is a lot.
Yeah,
It would just
that's
add
true.
it would add sort of that like even more replay value. And I already think that Hades has a lot though, so I think that's almost asking too much, but
Yeah, a lot of roguelikes have that where there's like Binding of Isaac. It's just a list of like 30 bosses and it just gives them to you at random.
yeah.
So you're not. But Hades, you're right. Hades always is there's 4 bosses. Here they are.
Yeah.
You have to beat them. So you have to have specific techniques for each of them. Whereas Binding of Isaac is like, well, you can't plan for it because you don't know who you're going to fight. Same with
Yeah.
Slay the Spire, you fight different bosses at the end. I don't think they quite have 30 different ones, but
No, but there's a few different ones. I think there's a couple of roguelikes that I've played in the past where, yeah, it's definitely like the same bosses in a row. There's one with the birds
Mhm.
that I play all the time. I can never remember its name, but you're just a bird. It's very
I'm
cute,
just a bird.
but when I'm the bird, it's just the first boss. Like you walk by, you're like, okay, I know how to do the first boss. Get the first boss down. Go to the second boss. Inevitably die because I haven't gotten good at the second boss, and then go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
I'm
is
not sure what I want as far as mechanics going forward. Like, I think these are all great. I don't know about like revolutionizing mechanics though. I'm still
mhm.
trying to think about that.
Well, I think we've seen it a bit in like other games as well. I haven't played Atomic Crops that much. I thought Atomic Crops had roguelike
Oh,
influences though.
I think it does too. That's one I've never played either. But you can grow crops and you get married.
Oh, okay. It's basically Stardew Valley, but a roguelike.
I think you can get married like during a run. If
What?
that might be incorrect. I believe that's how the game works, though. You can like
Okay.
choose who you. It's very fast paced. It moves very very quickly. Yeah, actually, I want to play this. I'm pretty sure it's a roguelike. I don't know.
I've
Maybe
heard it's very good, and I think I played like 5 minutes of it one time, and then was like, that's good. I don't ever need to touch this game again.
it looks cute. I'm kind of into it.
It was on Game Pass, I think, for a long time. I'm not sure if it still is, but
It
yeah,
was, yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
was.
yeah. Well, we have some homework to do, FLCB. We have to try
Apparently,
these games,
yeah.
Mama. We got to try Returnal. We got to try Atomic Crops. You have to try Children of Morta.
That's right. We had a few questions. Hold on. These are
Oh,
horrible. No, these are horrible questions. I copied it because I saw it earlier.
I did
And
too.
now I'm reading them, and the questions are: is Cult of the Lamb a roguelike?
I think it is.
um, have you ever
It,
rage quit Hades, David?
that question was for me. No, I don't think I've ever rage quit Hades. And the reason I don't rage quit at these games is like we talked about before, because it's all procedural, it's all random. So when you die,
Hmm.
you don't feel like, oh, it was unfair. You die because it was fair, or because, oh, my build was bad, or I didn't have the correct build for this room, I didn't have the correct build for this boss. And so I want to try again and have a different build or see what new items I can get. Or I just didn't I know the way the bull and the boy work, but I just screwed it up. So no, I've never rage quit them. Hades. I've always like wanted to try again, and then I stay up all night.
Oh, of course, yeah. who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
I think that'll be the danger. I'm waiting for it to go on sale on the Switch, and then I'm gonna slurp it up there, and it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be like,
Hades.
yeah, oh yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh,
I
you have to restart.
I've doubled a lot of my roguelikes recently because I want them on the Switch so that I can play them
Mm.
anytime, but then I also like want them on my computer to stream, and I'm like, this is a problem. Like, why am I just buying games twice now? Like,
Yeah.
they're
The
always
Switch is
on sale.
great for roguelikes because
It
they're half
is.
hour. You just pick it up, play
Yeah.
a run, and then you're done.
It's always they're always on sale though. I make sure, I don't want to actually buy Hades for $60 in total, but
Oh,
it's nice to
you
have.
should support. It's a good game.
Uh we've also got the question, is Loop Hero a Berlin type game? I've never played Loop Hero though.
It's not. I have played it. It's mm, no, because it's not turn-based and it is grid-based. It's not
Mhm.
turn-based though. Um no. Is it a roguelike? I don't know.
It is. It's never classified in the stores as roguelikes is the weird part, but I'm pretty sure it does have roguelike play though.
It does have a lot of roguelike elements. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it is. Yeah, you have permadeath and it's run based and it is procedural. Yeah,
Mhm.
it is a roguelike. It's a very interesting one though. I don't even know how to explain it. You have to like build out you have a little path that your little boy walks around and you have to like build you have to put tiles down like a forest or a town or different tiles do different things as you walk by them. It's
Mhm.
it's it's a very interesting game. It's not Berlin though because it would be missing a few things.
Because the Berlin people are awful.
They're
I
so specific.
I don't know why they did that. Like, I really don't know what they thought they were gonna do right with that.
They just wanted to make the game Rogue again.
Yeah, I think so. And I think they probably wanted to have a little bit of control over the genre because, like, we saw quite a few. I don't remember when Minecraft came out, but we saw quite a few more genres like starting to develop because the gaming industry was very young still, especially like at home systems and like very popular thing, like gaming becoming more popular in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And then we ended up with all of a sudden the roguelike genre was becoming a thing, but they were more developed, the games, and they like actually had the computing power to do cool and innovative things. And then you
Yeah.
had Minecraft and Terraria come out, and all of a sudden everyone was like, we got to put building in our game. Figure it out. Figure it
That's
out.
true. We want to mine blocks. There
Yeah,
has to be mining
apparently.
and
Fortnite
then
was supposed to be like Minecraft, but with zombies, and you built a
well
base.
it's yeah, when it was first released it was the save the world mode
Yeah. And
and
now it's really not.
it was like a defense. You had to build a base to defend against these zombies that were coming after you. And
Yeah.
they added the battle royale as kind of like a side thing, and then it just took off.
Yeah. Like it blew up to nothing that we ever thought it would be before, probably.
Yeah, I was so mad at the time. This is off topic, but because of Fortnite's explosion, Epic Games had other games that they were just like, we're shutting down everything else. We're
Oh,
abandoning our other games because we need like these 50 developers that are working over there. We got to get them on Fortnite because they need to be making like skins and stuff.
I had
So
no
there was a
idea.
MOBA. Yeah. What was that game called? There was a MOBA that was made by Epic Paragon. It was kind of like Smite or League of Legends, but it was
Mhm.
really good, but it didn't make them a lot of money. And they shut it down like as soon as Fortnite started getting good because they're like, you can't waste time working on this that's hardly making us money. We need to move you to Fortnite. Anyway, that's completely
Wow.
off topic, but
No, but it's kind of relevant too. I mean, like, Fortnite basically created another genre. Like everyone does
mhm.
battle royales now. I've spoken about it before. I'm extremely frustrated with the first person shooter market right now. I love
Yeah.
shooters. It's actually my favorite genre. Like anytime we've like gotten together and played games that are like things like the dwarf one, can Deep Rock Galactic, uh Warhammer Vermintide, so great
Yeah.
those games. Like I absolutely adore them. And I remember Halo Infinite just like being so amped for it. And then it came out and it was like, this is bad. this,
Oh
this
no, I
really
was
isn't
never a
good.
Halo boy.
Oh, it plays nothing like Halo, and I think it was trying to appeal to that mass market of people playing Fortnite and trying to lure those kids over, and it's like,
Oh,
leave them
this
alone.
they're already playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
They're not interested.
They don't want it. And I like Fortnite, but I want to be able to play like an actual like old school shooter again. Like play something that reminds me of Quake. Like I don't
They
know.
don't make them, eh?
No.
Yeah, those arena-based shooters. Like everyone starts somewhere in the
Yeah.
world. There's health packs around.
I think one of the closest things we have is Overwatch, and I will that game makes me tilt. We don't need to revisit that life.
I think these are important, and they do tie back to roguelikes because
Yeah.
it's all about trends, and
Yeah.
the roguelikes were like a trend that really got kicked off by like what we were talking about. But yeah, it's interesting how the industry does work in these waves, like you said, with now first person shooters. They don't make them like that anymore. Like where do you even buy an old school arena based shooter? GoldenEye came out on Game Pass. It
It
has
did.
online play.
It did. Oh, does it? I think maybe I should play GoldenEye then. That would
There's
be fun.
something weird about it though.
Oh.
It might just be, I don't know if anyone knows. There's something weird like online plays. Is it only Switch or something? I don't know.
You know,
Something weird.
well, I find like when I was playing Banjo Kazooie on
Is
stream,
that true?
the N64 controls were not ported correctly. Like there's just something about it. Like you try and play an N64 game, and it's like this controller is nothing like that controller. Like I can't do this.
It's because the Nintendo 64 controller was garbage and
Oh
it
no,
was
it
built for
was.
alien hands. Like who could hold it? Ugh,
I used that controller as a brass knuckle when I was a kid. If you can believe it, I was a very feisty child, and I would
I
like
can't believe that.
I would take the middle one, and then the edge, ones on the side, you could basically like hit someone in their knee with it.
Stop this! You can't just attack people with Nintendo 64 controllers, Fatlegschickenboy.
We would be playing Mario Tennis, and I'd get pissed, and then all
Oh,
of a sudden, I was hitting someone with a controller.
is this why you have a love for Waluigi? Because of Mario Tennis?
Uh, no, that one started in. Maybe it did start in Mario Tennis. Actually,
That was his first game,
I
I
just told
think.
someone, I was like, I'm gonna be the cute guy, and all of a sudden, like Waluigi. It started when I was a teenager. It became a joke. Like I'm gonna play the cute one, and then I'd pick Waluigi, and everyone would just say, "What? Like,
Oh, I love that. It's a meme.
are you sure? Do you have the right one?"
Yeah. Is that the cute guy?
Last question. Last thing I think we should talk about, David, and we should have talked
Oh,
about this at the very beginning.
uh-oh.
Roguelike versus roguelite.
No.
What does? Just no, no.
I think this is such a silly distinction. So in the Berlin interpretation, okay, the Berlin interpretation says
Hmm.
this list of 9 factors can be used to determine how roguelike a game is. Missing some points does not mean the game is not a roguelike. Likewise, possessing some points does not mean the game is a roguelike. So I think a lot of people said, well, it's not like rogue, so it's not a roguelike. And then they want to use the term roguelite, which is okay, I guess. But I feel like it's splitting hairs and it's so confusing. And like, why do we need this distinction between roguelike and roguelite? It doesn't make sense to me. Who's making the rule on that?
But the same people who made the Berlin interpretation.
Yeah, I know. And they said, the Berlin interpretation people said, if it has random environment generation and permadeath, basically, it's a roguelike. And if it doesn't have any of the others, it can still be a roguelike. It doesn't make it a roguelite. That's
that
how I'm interpreting
that
that. How
doesn't
do you
help at
feel about
all.
this? It does
I
help.
I always feel like when I talk about like roguelike versus roguelite, what would make sense in my mind is roguelite is a game with roguelike elements. So
Uh-huh.
something like Sifu would be a roguelite, and perhaps Cult of the Lamb maybe would be a roguelite.
Okay.
But then you get to weird cases like Hades, right? And it's like it has everything that's the definition of a roguelike, except for there's story progression, basically. Like in my
Hmm.
mind. That's the only
Hmm.
thing that really like sets it apart from the crowd. And then you're like, okay, is this like a new type of roguelike that we're hitting, the modern roguelike, which it probably is, or is it a roguelite?
I consider that it kind of gatekeeping,
I
honestly.
think I think it is. I think everything should
Yeah.
just be a roguelike and we should just call it a day.
I agree. And I think I don't understand why we need to split hairs even more. It's either it's a roguelike or a game with roguelike elements that's not a roguelike. You know what I mean? Though for
Yeah.
me, that covers everything that we need. We
Yeah.
don't need to then continue and be like, and even go further for roguelite. I don't know. I think it's kind of gatekeeping where some people be like, you're using the wrong term. That's not a roguelike. And I'm like, okay, but you know what I mean. So then why do we need to have this conversation? I think it comes up way too much. And I think I personally think it's a little silly. You know what I mean when we say roguelike?
Yeah. And it well,
Is that wrong?
it does no, it does feel like gatekeeping. And you're right, because like we've been gatekeeping video games, I think, for like a really long time.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people in the gaming community currently, at least people around well, you're of an older generation, no, I'm kidding. You're an older man, Dave.
Stop that right now.
um technically we are the same generation, David.
I'm
I
a
don't
millennial.
I don't know, I am too. I don't know how it works. But now if I say if it feels like a big gap, you're going to be like, "Stop that right now."
We said I feel younger than I am and you feel older. So maybe I'm
Yes.
the younger one here.
Okay, maybe we've like met in the middle now, right? Like
Yeah.
um
I'm not that much older than you
no, you
either.
aren't. You aren't. But no, like being a part of the millennial generation and sort of when gaming kind of started, a lot of a lot of this stuff we were probably bullied for, like as a kid. I think most people were. And I
Yeah.
think that came with like a number of issues like in the community. Like I've seen firsthand nerds and gamers and geeks or whatever you want to call them are really bad at self-regulating. If someone is a
Hmm.
bully in the community, no one will tell them to stop. Like just
Mm.
you need to get it together and not be mean to us for 5 seconds because we've been so used to it. And it's that one thing that like made us really cool. Well, not cool, but like now it's cool to be into this stuff, right? Like now this is like,
Yeah.
ooh, everyone wants to be part of this nerd culture and like teach me and all that. And as almost like a reflex, it feels like we've decided, oh, no, I'm going to gatekeep. I'm going to make sure that you know everything about Star Wars. And if you don't, you're not a true fan of Star Wars. Get out. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's happened with games. Like, that's just, that's
It's
just
not
it.
healthy.
No.
I remember, yeah, along the same lines, I remember being like, okay, I'm friends with a lot of nerds,
Mm-hmm.
and but then there's even levels, but even then they would be like Dungeons and Dragons and Magic, that's for losers or
Yeah.
whatever. That would be the thing that we would be talking about in high school. But then it's like, but we just play Nintendo 64 like all day.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a lot of gatekeeping. There's a lot of, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I agree.
communities change and things change. And it's kind of cool to be part of like the cool thing now, but at the same time it's like, can we not talk about roguelike versus roguelite all day? Like
It's excessive, and it's just like, yeah, it feels like it's splitting hairs again. Like it's too much. Like there's no way to. There's so many games, and it's such an amazing genre that I think
Mhm.
it takes away from it to be like, well, this is not allowed to be in that genre, and this is allowed, and this is not allowed because of this. Like, there's no one, and except for the Berlin interpretation. Since then, that was in 2008. There
Mhm.
hasn't been anyone getting together and making rules on this. Um, uh,
But that comes down to also why this podcast was started a little bit is because no one's having these conversations that we need to have. The game
yeah,
journalists are off doing I don't know what. Like they're they're just having a good time at this point because they're all losing their jobs, quite frankly.
they're
And
doing reviews,
yeah,
10 out of 10.
and it's infuriating because they're not doing like the cool things that you could do. Like what about things like, you know, postmortems with game developers or talking about the history of games? Like these are important things to talk about. And
I'm excited that you're talking about them.
you don't want to. I'm excited that you're here talking about them, David. Are you kidding me? I feel like
I
this has
love
been the
talking
best
about
one.
this. Oh, this is so much fun.
This has been the best podcast so far.
We did it.
We did it.
It's still happening.
Not to steal your tagline, David, but like, this is the greatest podcast of all time, I think. Like
Stop that right now. I don't know.
uh
They've all been really good.
you both love talking, that's the problem. Well, I like
True.
talking. And you know what? I've never actually had an opportunity. Like David and I play a lot of games, but we've never really played games one-on-one. And this has been like the first
True.
opportunity where David and I have really like sat down and talked together. Like it's nice. I got to hear David's opinion. Like
Oh, you get to hear a lot of my opinions though. But
yes. Yeah.
but I know what you mean. Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't had too much one-on-one time to like. But I love talking about these are important topics, and like you said,
Yeah.
no one's talking about them. Most people are just talking about this is a game I like, and this is a game I
Yep.
don't like, or this game's trash.
And I think
There's lots of negativity as well, but yeah, these are important topics.
there's value in like giving people your opinion on a game, right? But it's like it's
Yeah.
also I don't think we're coming at them from very critical perspectives anymore, right? Where it's like, okay, like yes, this is a good game, but also there are other games in the genre that have done it a lot better. And if you like this aspect of that game, maybe you should go try this game. We're just like, it's a good game.
Yes.
Okay.
That in game reviewing in general, that idea of like if you like this game, you should try this game. That I think is so important. And game
Mm-hmm.
reviewers don't do that as
Nope.
much. They're just like this is a good game and this is a bad game. But that doesn't help anybody. You can't just say that because everyone has different opinions and everyone has different things that they want out of a game.
Yeah.
So a better thing would be like if you liked Binding of Isaac, you'll probably like Hades. Things like that
Yeah.
are way better. But yeah.
It's a lot more valuable. Your former YouTube channel was like actual value there, right? Like just talking about the Humble Bundle.
Yeah, and I tried to do that a lot. I never said like I like this game or I don't like this game. It was always like this is a good game for you. If you like city builders
Mhm.
and you like those kinds of really cozy games, then you'll probably like this or
Yeah.
things like that. That's way more valuable, I feel,
I
than just
completely
saying
agree.
9
Yeah.
out of 10, send it off, send it to the press.
Because we've seen some really awful things. I think most people will remember IGN's review of Alpha Sapphire. Too much water.
Yeah, that's still a meme. That was like 20 years ago
I
or more.
cannot believe that they did that. Like, hello? It's a game about water. Like
Yeah, yeah. And
and
that's the thing. Did
yeah.
they have a reviewer that liked Pokemon, or did they have a reviewer that they've never played a Pokemon game before? That's very important as well.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that in the past, right? And it's like finding the balance between like, do you put someone who like really is diehard and loves the Souls-like games on Elden Ring, or do you find someone who can play the game and maybe has like not as much of a crush on Elden Ring on the game? How do
Yeah.
you find that?
Me personally, what do I think of that?
Yeah.
I know it's so difficult because either way you're getting bias. You're
Mhm.
either getting biased because this person was already going to like Elden Ring. There was no way they didn't like it. If Dark Souls 1, 2, 3 were their favorite games of all time, then
Mhm.
they're going to like Elden Ring. It's impossible not to. But then if you pick someone who's never played any of them before, they probably are going to have a really hard time and they're not going to like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Like you said, where do you go from there? I think you put someone who really likes the genre and really wants to review it and wants to play it, but they
Mhm.
need to come at it from a critical point of view and be like, and say the same thing. Like, if you like Dark Souls, here are some things that this game has in common, and you might like these, or there's some other things that might detract from your experience. Um, Things it does wrong, things it does different from Dark Souls, things like that.
Yeah.
But then it comes to a problem like, do I give it a 10 out of 10? Does that make sense? Because that doesn't make sense for everyone. Because if you don't like Dark
Mhm.
Souls, it's not a 10 out of 10 for you.
No, it
It's
absolutely
it's
isn't.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's a hard conversation, right? Like to
Yeah.
have. I know one website, I want to say it was either Kotaku or Polygon, which I can't believe I'm saying they did something really right here because I don't love those sites, but they had a second look. They had one person review it, and
Oh,
then like 2 weeks later, they had a second reviewer actually step in and say, "I also played the game. This is what I think about it."
Did they do that of their own accord, or did they do that because there's backlash over their review?
I think they did it of their own accord. I think they
Okay.
decided that it was actually like a good idea to try and have multiple reviewers take a look at a game.
Yeah. That's such a good idea. Have everyone on your staff play it. They're going to play it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, might as well, right? Like throw more things out, because I think a lot of people have learned nowadays, like you pick a game content creator that you like and you kind of fall in line with their
Yes.
opinions. I know, like, if there was a game that I'm like, I don't know if I should play this, I would ask someone like you, David, because I'd be like, have you played this game? We like the same games. Like, I gotta know, where do I go from here? I don't trust Sally Sam at IGN. Like,
Oh, screw you, Sally Sam. Is that a real person?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, good.
I hope it's not. If it is, I'm very sorry. I don't think it
Sally's
is.
watching like, oh.
Oh no, that would be so sad. Um, any last thoughts about roguelikes or what we've talked about tonight, David?
Oh my God, I just had so much fun. I could talk about the problem is FLCB. I could talk about roguelikes forever.
Oh, I know.
But I do think we touched on everything that I wanted to with
Mm-hmm.
them. I'm just excited for more.
Yeah.
Like you asked me before, I don't know where this genre is going to go from here. But the level of roguelikes, like starting back from Spelunky, it's only been getting better and better and better. And it's being led by indie games or indie developers who are not slurping up every last penny from us with microtransactions. They're actually using this genre to create like really great and innovative games time after time. So many different indie developers. So I'm just excited to see what we get next. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hades 2. I'm so excited.
Hades too. That's all we need. Well, I
Hades 2.
I never thought we'd get something like Played Up either. Like when that happened, I was like, "What? Hello? Who made
Hello.
this?"
I
Like,
know.
we've gotten some really really great games recently, and I think yeah, like we
Yeah,
said, like it's only up from here, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
that's the trajectory, mama. It's going
Yeah.
up and up and up. So,
Unless it suddenly crashes and burns, and then we'll have to find a new favorite genre. We'll
oh
find
well.
something else.
Battle Royale, I guess.
Oh no,
Go
not
back
that.
to it.
They've already died, David. Like they're already on the
Okay,
way
good.
out. You can't pick that one.
Thank goodness.
Uh, thank you everyone for being here, especially you, YesDavid. I
Oh,
super
thanks so
appreciate
much for
it.
having me,
Yeah.
Fatlegschickenboy. I'm so honored that you that you thought to invite me. So I
I
feel very, very honored. Thank you so much.
I couldn't have asked for a better first guess. I mean, like this is amazing. And
Yay!
yeah, I had such a great time.
Me too.
We're just gonna raid out right away. Goodbye, everyone. Get out of my
Oh,
stream.
do you
Wait,
want me to leave?
wait. No. You're fine. You're fine. Before you go, David. Anyone who doesn't follow David here, I know there's a couple people. Do click the heart on the top. David is streaming tomorrow. Do you know what you're streaming, David, or is it a surprise for us?
It's going to be a
Ah,
surprise.
okay. It's gonna be a
It
surprise.
might be Hades. It might be something new.
I love
I
I
don't
love
know.
that. I love
We'll
that
see
it's
how I feel. I'm just a flower in the wind.
I
I
love
just
that
don't know.
it's been a surprise every time recently. I've really enjoyed the
Me too.
just clicking open and going, "Oh, David's playing this." Always surprised.
It's a new
Um
thing I'm trying, yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing. Okay. Before we go real quick, just 2 seconds of housekeeping. We'll be live Wednesday. We're not going live tomorrow because I've got things to do in my real life, as streamers do. And we won't be live for most of next week either because I'm going home to watch the Super Bowl with my family and everyone can get out, so we won't be having a podcast next week. That's it. That's it. Thank you for being here, David. Thank you
Yay!
everyone else for being here. Uh
Thank you so much.
yeah, I had such a great time. Thank you.